In this video, we're going to talk about how to create lists and reports. And lists are a very important function in that they allow you to report on key metrics, whether it's for your departments, for your senior management, or even trustees. So to access the lists function, we go to Data, Lists, and now you'll see a number of lists in this list. And this allows you to see the type. So we'll see the reference or individual references for each list, the name of the list, the type of list which has been created, those who have created it, and other information regarding the list itself. We also can see connections and downloads, which we'll touch upon very soon. So the first point of call is to create a new list. So by going to create new list, you will get an option of different types of data that you can export. And so we can either export account information related to the names, addresses, or even account preferences. It can be beneficiaries related to the orphan sponsorships. We can have under giving the donations or the allocations which are in the system, and we can have others, even users. And so there's a large number of reports that can be created. So for the purpose of this particular training, we will create two types of list. One is the account list and the other is a donation allocation list. So first we'll go to accounts and we'll click on accounts. Now in this list, what we want to do is create a list of all of our donors who have donated over the past, say, 1 year. So in this list, we want to create a list of all of our donors in one particular place with their email addresses, for example. And so we put a list name. So we say list of all donors. And now on the left, we can add fields that we want to collate the information within. So we can click select field, and there are a number of options here which one can select. Now these fields are very detailed. They allow you to collect, for example, account information. So we can report on the addresses, the names of the donors, email addresses, their tax eligibility. Under donation, we can get the donation amounts, donation allocations, which we'll touch upon later, any pledges that they have, and any regular giving. So there's a lot that can be added in this list. But for the sake of this training, we just want to focus on the account. So first we may want to choose, for example, the reference, so a unique reference. And so here we have the field title. We can actually change this title how we want to see it on the report itself. So we can say account reference, and we press add field. Now, as you can see, 25 results of 84 have been populated in so far. And so this gives an initial preview of the information that you are trying to create a report for. So we want to add some more information now. We can add the name of the individual. So let's add display name. And we can see now we're starting to build a report. We may want their address. So we can add an address here. Let's add single line. And we can add an address. We now also want to add, for example, the locality. So where do they live exactly, in which city? And so this is giving certain cities. And we would like to now create the email address. So we want to add the email address, so primary email address. Now, as you'll notice, in certain fields there are additional configurations. For example, with email address, you may want to decide that I want to just take their personal email address or their work. So this can be set in. And also there are other filters that one can add, whether these are kind of invalid or valid. And this differs based on the type of information that you're trying to create. In this case, we just want to have an email address without any other conditions. So as you can see now on the right, we have a list of the account reference name. We have an address, locality, email address. We can add anything we wish in addition to this if we want to. But for the sake of this training, we may add, for example, the status. So this shows the status of the account, of whether it's active or not. Now, once the account has been, or the fields have been added, we do have another option before creating the list called filters. Now, filters allow you to filter any of the fields that you have added. So for example, one may choose to say that I want to only add, for example, those who live in the UK. So for example, here first we'd have to add field. So let's just add the country. And so we have United Kingdom. Now here, what we want to do, so we have 25 out of 84 records. So in total, there are 84 records which fulfill this criteria on the left, which is the list of donors. Now, what we will do, we will add a filter. And by adding a filter, we will say we want to filter on the country. And we want to specify this to those in the UK only. So we will choose United Kingdom. If we press OK, this will amend the list to only allow those which are within the United Kingdom. Now, if I go up, you will see that it's 25 of 81 records. And so here we see that there were 84 records initially, which included all countries. But when we added UK, only 81 now have populated, which means that all of these in this list are UK-based accounts. Once we're happy with this, we will now then go and press Create New List. Now, once this is created, we will see our list has come up at the bottom here, list of all donors, accounts, and it has a reference LS10042 with 81 results populated. We can now go into this account or into this list. And now we have the list which has been created here. And there's a few things to note on this particular page. The first, we can see that the data in this list is not currently set to auto refresh. This is an initial kind of warning which allows us to actually refresh this list on a regular basis automatically. At the moment, it is not set to refresh. So in order to set it to refresh, we can click on these three buttons, and we have two options. Either we're happy to manually refresh it every time we come onto this page, or the other option, which we suggest in most cases, is you enable auto refresh. What this means is that this will allow then every 6 hours, this will refresh automatically, and any information which fulfills the criteria which you have stated in this particular list, if anything or any data enters into the system which fulfills this criteria, the list will auto refresh with that particular account. And so, for example, if you were to import 20 accounts from the UK accounts into the system tomorrow, then within a few hours, those accounts will populate in this list automatically. So we'll press OK. And so now we can see it's auto refresh. So here we can see the list size, we can see who's created it, we can see when it was last refreshed, we can also see who it is shared with. And so here we're able to share the list if necessary with other people. We can either make it available to all, or we can choose select users, for example, anyone who is there, or we can make it private to only to the one who created the particular list. Now, the first point of call generally at this point is now you have the list available. There are a few options in terms of how to manipulate or use this list. The first option, which is used by a lot of clients, is the download list. So here we want to actually download this information into an Excel sheet. So we choose download list, and we can choose either a CSV or an Excel file. In this case, we'll choose an Excel file. And we can choose the actual fields that we want to populate in this list. So we'll press down, we'll choose all, select all, and we'll press next. We can also password protect this file if there is sensitive data, and in this case we'll say no. But if you do choose yes, then you can set a password, and this will be set on the Excel file when it is opened. Now we can press export. Once you press export, there are two ways that you can do. Either you can wait for this to populate, which it will automatically update in the next minute, or depending on the size of the list. Alternatively, you can close and come back to the list later. In this case, the list is already populating, so we can take a look. Now, as you can see, we have a list now in an Excel format of all of the information that we had. We have the account reference, we have the address, and we have the email addresses and the address countries, etc. And so this list now can be used in a variety of ways, whether using a pivot table or in other ways as necessary. Now, if we go back to our list. Now, the other option which can happen, especially if you have a large list, and in some cases it doesn't automatically populate if you may have 5,000-6,000 rows of information, is you can press close, and over time, if you were to come back to the list, you can find it in the download list. So if you were to come here and you press download, you can come back here to the downloads list on the main page of lists. If you come to downloads, you will see this particular list available for you to download, and this shows how many times it has been downloaded as well. So you can actually find it here as well if you wish, especially if you are not waiting for the file to populate due to the size. Now, the other thing that one can do regarding lists, if we go back to the lists, is to create connections. And so a connection is the ability to connect this list to a function within the system or to an external third party. So if we press connect, you will see two options here. One is engage and one is external. The first one is tasks, and so we can see here that we can automatically create a task for each entry in the list. What this means is that if you have a particular list that you wish to do something with, for example, to create tasks on the back of for your staff members, for example, your donor care team to ring these individuals, then you can press task, press next, and you can put a title for the task. In this case, we want to say ring donor to say thank you, for example. And we can assign this, let's say we assign it to myself. And we can add a priority if we wish, if it is a major priority. And we can set a due date. So this is a due date for all of the tasks to be complete. So I may say that this needs to be done within 1 month. Now, once I save this connection, this has now created a connection with the tasks function. And what this means is that each of these 81 records are now individual tasks for it to do a particular action. So if I go to my dashboard, you will see now as we go down that the tasks have now been aggregated, a list of all donors. And if we press plus, we will see that these now individual ones have been there. So if we click any of these, you'll find that there is ring donors to say thank you task, which is specific for a particular account, which was in the list that we have. And once we've actioned this, for example, if we have rang the donor or we've actioned whatever is on the task, we can press mark as complete, and then that will be removed from there, and we can track everything accordingly. Now, the other element of the connections refers to the external third parties. And so if we go back to our lists, and we go to all donors, list of donors or accounts. Now, if I just remove this connection that was related to the tasks, I would now want to create a different type of connection. And it's just worth noting that only one connection can be created at the same time. If you wish to create multiple connections, they should be on different lists. But once you press connect, and now in this case, if we press external, you'll see a number of options here. And this is primarily meant for emails. And so in this particular case, we can connect these lists with third-party emailing lists such as MailChimp or SendGrid, which will allow us to populate the email queues there if we want to do a mail shot, for example. And so if we choose, for example, MailChimp, what we would have to do here is to add the API key, which is taken from your MailChimp account. Once you have access to that, if you add the MailChimp API key and press next, then a new column or a new list will be created in MailChimp and will be automatically populated with the list of those which are in your list. And so this way you could create a list of donors who live in the UK who you wish to call to an event, and this will create automatically a MailChimp list for you to send to your donors as necessary. And the same is for SendGrid and Sendy. Now, the final thing to note regarding lists is that it is also possible to deactivate or to delete lists, which can be done here if you wish that you feel that you don't need to use them. At the same time, you can edit the list as necessary. It is also worth mentioning that you can change the field order. So you can, on the left side, if you choose any of these 3 lines, you can actually change the order of how the list looks. In addition, we can edit fields. So by clicking on the cog, we're able to edit any of the fields as necessary, or we can remove them as well. Now, to move on to another type of list which is used commonly, especially with many clients, is the donation allocations list. So if we go back to the list function and we go to create new list, now you'll see the options that we have available again for the type of lists. In this case, we'll go to giving. Now, you'll see a number of options or list types here. The ones we want to focus on specifically for now are the donation and donation allocations. And this is used quite considerably by organizations. So what's the difference? The difference between the donation and a donation allocation is that the donation allocation itself are the specific individual donation items that one is trying to raise money for. Whereas the donation is the amalgamation of the donation allocations at a single point of when a donation is made. So to kind of give a specific example, if someone goes onto the website or your website and they're browsing on the website and they want to make multiple donations. So for example, they choose to donate £50 to an education fund. They choose to donate £100 for a water well. And they also want to give another £50 for winter kits. So as you can see, when they go to the checkout, you'll see that there is one donation item of £100 and two of £50 because they've chose three separate projects. So what Engage does is it allows you to separate between the two. So we have here what we call three different types of projects which are being donated towards, which are known as allocations. And so donation allocation will show you each line, £100 for the water well and £50 for the education fund and £50 for the winter kit. The donation, however, is at the point of the checkout when the individual makes the payment, they are making a total payment of £200, which contains the £100 and the £250 amounts. And so the donation list will give you the total amount which has been donated in one go, which is the £200, whereas the donation allocation list will give you the three individual donation items or projects that one has given with their respective £150 and £50 respectively. So in most cases, organizations, depending on what they need to report on, many of them tend to use the donation allocation, but it does depend on your objective. But in this case, we'll talk about donation allocations. So what we want to see here, for example, is the total number. So we might say total donation allocations in 2023. And now we'll create a list. So again, you have different options one can choose. In this case, we want to put the donation allocation reference, for example. So let's say allocation reference. We would like to add the donation allocation item. And we would like to add the donation allocation, let's say location, and we will add the dimension, which is the theme. We will also add the amount, and you will also see quote and base currency. Base amount is generally the amount in your local currency, so we'll choose base amount. So as you can see, we're slowly building a report or a list which shows the different types of donations which have been donated in this particular time. Now, as you can see, we've said we want those in 2023, and I suppose you'd want to see also who has donated these. So we want to first add the date, because that's important to work out how we can add a filter. So we may go to the donation and we go to donation date. And we want to add the name of the individual who had actually donated, and we would like maybe their email as well, because we want to do a thank you letter, or we want to send them something in the post or by email. So we'll add the primary email address, and we will also add the address, and we'll add the country. Now, as you can see, we have built a list here, and I probably, if I now move up the name here and the information of the individual, and so as you can see now, we have the donation allocation reference with the name of the individual, we have the country, and if we move to the right, we will also see the amount that they've given and for what they have given for. So we can see the types of projects. Now we've said it's 2023, so we want to add a filter. So we add filter, and we'll filter by the date, and we want to say past range, for example. So we will say specific dates from, and you can have different options here. You can say past range based on specific dates, on period before today, or past period. In this case, because we know it's 2023, we will choose the past range and specific dates. So we will go to January the 1st up until today, which is the 19th, and we'll press OK. So this now has resulted in 174 records, which we can see here. Now, it's also important, actually, sometimes finance staff would like to see more specific information related to the donation. So here we can also add the information related to the donation itself. So for example, we can add the transaction details, and we can add the status. So we can add the transaction detail, which will show us, for example, if there are any payment transaction IDs, which are very specific, unique references for reconciliation. We may also want to include those which the status is active. So if we go to donation, if we go to the donation itself and we go to status, we can see here that this is choosing all those which are complete, and we may want to remove anything which is incomplete. So we will add another filter here. So we may add status, and we will say that the status has to be complete. We don't want to include any others, and so if we press OK, then that now has also uploaded to 114 from 170, which are now complete. And so when we're happy with this, we press create new list. The list now will be created at the bottom here, total donation allocations in 2023. We will first refresh, enable auto refresh in order to download the list. And so just refresh. And so if we press download list Excel, press yes, and we will export this data. Now this may take a little longer, but we'll wait a moment. So as you can see, the total donation allocation list has now downloaded, and we can see here that we have a number of donation allocations which show the amounts and what we have been receiving money for. And we can see that these are the amounts that have been received in addition to others. And so this information can be manipulated as you wish. If you do need support on this in terms of creating the right type of list, then it is worth getting in touch with the client support at n30.ltd. Now the other part related to lists and reports are the analytics. So analytics allows us to see pictorial representation of your data, and we also have another unique feature which is called the analysis section, which has a bit more detail already predefined. So if we start off with the reports, in reports you'll notice that we have some reports already populated: the income overview, regular giving overview, and sponsorship overview. These will be they'll be amended, and there's also the ability to add bespoke reports if you have Power BI expertise or you wish to add something more bespoke. In this case, we'll click on income overview, and now via Power BI the information is taken from your system in order to populate some graphs. And so we can see here, for example, our total income from the target. So we've got 22.4, and this was a target, for example. We can see the average one-off values. We have certain fund dimension, the amounts. Of course, this will show us how much has been raised year on year, and other elements of information. Now, what one can do here is a few options. One, we can choose certain reporting periods. So we may say over the last 30 days, over the last month. We can choose certain reporting periods. We can choose for specific donation items. So in our system, we may have specific donation items. So we may say, okay, we only want to see the information related to a Build a School project. So if we just choose Build a School, then this will populate with only Build a School income. So it's £11,000, for example. If we go back to select all, it will repopulate the total. And then we can also add the stipulations as necessary. On the left, we have a bookmark. So we can actually add bookmarks, which allow us to see certain data that we want to see on a regular basis. So we may say, for example, we will choose our specific reporting. So we may say the reporting period specifically over the last 30 days. So we will choose that. And this is showing now the last 30 days. So we will add a new bookmark and say income over the last 30 days. And now this has saved this view for you, and you can add multiple views and check them as necessary. Now, if you go below, you'll see some tabs. These tabs represent different types of information that can be seen within this report. So we have an income by donation item. So if you click this will populate all of the donation items and the amounts. And so the orange is generally the previous year, and the blue is the current year. And so we can see here that Build a School, we have this Cholera project, we have others which allow us to see different amounts. Going forward, you can go to income by funds. So this is another view which is useful for finance teams, which can show the various dimensions that you have set. So for example, we have countries here, and we also have at the bottom the different types of themes. And so this gives us a fund breakdown across all of the different funds. Now, interestingly enough, you can manipulate this even further, or you can even download this information. So this information can be downloaded both from the list function or from here. So for example, if we go to the 3 dots, we can export the data, and we can say we want to export it as it is. And this will allow you to export the data directly from the dashboard. And so this gives the information that was in the dashboard, and we can see that the different locations with their relative themes, and we have the amounts here as well as necessary. And this can be manipulated as necessary. Finally, it's worth mentioning as well that some of these reports can actually be, or some of these particular graphs can be put onto your main dashboard, and they can be pinned. So if we go back, for example, let's go to income 2022, and let's say, for example, we want to pin this onto the main dashboard, we can click here, pin to dashboard, income by theme. If we press pin, we can now see on our dashboard, if we go back, and we can see the themes have now been populated here, and so we can see this at a glance as necessary. The final section then is the donation income analysis report, which is an important report and allows us to see donations and the attributions of those donations. So if we go to analytics and we go to analysis, this is a bespoke report for organizations to see where the donations are coming from. So we can choose a date range. So let's just say this year, and we can add various functions. So here, many of them are preset. We have types of individual organization, we have allocation types and attributions, so which attributions. If we press search, we can see now that we have a small report which is giving us for the past year where the income has come from and what it's for. So we see the top donation items, we can see the attributions. So for example, where the information is coming from, where the donations are coming from based on our attributions, which are attribution values, which is in another video. And we can also see, for example, so we can even see the fundraisers that they're attributed to, and we can see the data all in one. This requires a bit more training, but it's a very useful report. We can download this report, and this will download an Excel similar to the other lists we've seen before. And so this is the end of the training on lists. It's worth noting that, of course, lists can be very specific and can be made according to the needs of your organization and to different departments. So if there are any additional questions, feel free to get in touch with our support team, or we may have future videos on additional